Hi, folks. Welcome. My name's Stephanie, and I work with Climbing the Seven Summits. As you know, we're going to be talking a little bit about how to talk to your loved ones. We have a pretty fun quote up there on the screen right now, and Caroline's going to be diving into that. So, folks, we're having a summit side chat today. It's just more of a conversation. We're not talking about a specific expedition. We will use Everest a lot today in our examples, but our topic today is about getting your loved ones on board to support your mountaineering dreams and how to tackle some of those harder questions or just kind of questions that come up, whether they're harder and feel a little bit easier for you to answer, that come up when you maybe announce or are planning and training for a big mountain objective. So, Caroline, I'm going to let you jump in here now and introduce it.
Yeah, hi guys. Many of you know me. I'm Caroline. I'm the other owner of Climbing the Seven Summits. I'm in a really unique position. As that owner of a mountain guiding service, it means that I facilitated, hundreds, thousands of climbers tackling the seven summits from anywhere from like their first foray with an Alpine Academy on Kosciuszko all the way through to Everest for just shy of 10 years now. And I've seen quite a bit during that time. But I'm also in a really unique position that I'm not a, you know, deep mountaineer myself. I've dabbled in it, but I'm more looking at things outside of the lens of the climbers themselves and relating more to the other side of the equation because I'm the business partner and the wife of a 25-year career 8,000-meter mountain guide. I'm the little sister of another 8,000-meter mountaineer. I'm a mum. I'm a friend of lots of climbers, many of whom are you. I also studied psychology at university, so I've always been fascinated by and equipped to be on the lookout for why we act the way we do, observing those dynamics, observing our climbers from their summits to their setbacks, what happens from when they sign up all the way through from one summit to the next and beyond. So I can really sit through each perspective and I can empathize with it. I can kind of weave those different things together because I myself have and still do have all of those conflicts of our loved ones. Every time Mike prepares and starts packing his duffel bags in our bedroom with our 5 and 6 year olds, jumping around, I feel all of those feelings of those long, too hard. Many of our respondents said time away. I know I'm not staring down the barrel of 2 months solo parenting, solo CEOing, and I have all of the feelings that they have. So, my intention for us today is this is a conversation for you guys as climbers to be better equipped to have open-hearted conversations about this topic because I have never seen it addressed by our industry, not once. And yet there are thousands of climbers out there, and I can tell you this is an enormous cornerstone to setting up their success. Your greatest asset is not who your trainer is or what high-tech gear you now have. It's not about your hypoxico routine. It is your home. It's your people, right? It's having them get this, like get behind you, believe in you, and buy in. So the goal of this webinar is really to help you better understand their perspectives, their fears, their hesitations, their concerns, their feelings, answer the difficult questions with confidence, and help the people closest to you become part of your journey rather than obstacles to it and be cheerleaders for you rather than your roadblocks. Right. So that is my intention today. And, I'm really excited because I think I'm in this really unique position as possibly one of the only people on the planet that can weave those two perspectives together. I want to start by telling you a bit of a story. And I'm going to change some of the details because we have a really small community. We all know each other, right? But let's just say I have seen a version of this story far more than once. You got a really strong climber, honestly, one of the more prepared guys that I've worked with. Going into a Vincent trip, he had his spreadsheet sorted, load carrying practice, had done the whole thing, training plans, and his wife was definitely not on board. And I'm not talking like screaming, fighting, not on board. Like every time it came up, it went sideways. It was just more that after a while, they just totally stopped talking about it. He just muscled through with his plan. I'm doing this anyway, A-type vibe. He even told me at one point, kind of proudly, to be honest, like, oh, we don't even fight about it anymore. And I remember thinking, oh, that's not quite the same thing as like, her being okay with it. But back then, I didn't really feel like it was my place to say anything. So he left for Antarctica for Vincent with that hole just sitting there, right? This, like, we don't talk about it, eggshells, resentment. And they had had an extra day or two at high camp waiting for weather. And it was nothing dramatic. It was just, cold and bored and waiting in a tent for days on end. And he finally asked his guide, like, hey, can I use the sat phone to call home? And it was a totally a nothing call back to his wife. Those awkward, like, half sentences, like, oh, how are things at home? Yeah, they're good. And she said something like, okay, well, be careful. And he said, yeah, yeah, I will. And that was it, basically, like 90 seconds, maybe max. And they told his guide that afterward he just lay in his tent and he couldn't sleep at all that night and he couldn't just stop replaying her voice in his mind. And it wasn't like what she said, but how she had said it totally flat, like ugh, totally bored out. And it totally messed with him more than the cold, the mountains, the boredom. He felt the distance in his marriage. And the next day, conditions are fine. Guide says we're a go. The guides in the group were going for it. Everyone's leaving. And he just called it, threw in the towel, turned around, went down with the assistant guide. Not because he wasn't strong enough or because of the mountain. The mountain was fine. He just said his head just wasn't in it. And his head wasn't where it needed to be. And on that kind of terrain, that's a thing that you can't fake your way through. And I chatted to him later about it. We debriefed. And I said, did you regret that decision? And he said, no. Actually, he said that if he'd pushed through it with his head in a mess, fatigued from being completely sleepless, tossing and turning and overthinking, that's exactly the kind of decision that gets people hurt. And he knew that. That was a good climbing decision, to be fair. But sure, he was pretty pissed off about the whole thing. It's a $60,000 exercise. And he wasn't pissed off at her. He was just mostly pissed off at himself, thinking, we stopped fighting about it, sure, but that wasn't the same as we're good. So this isn't like a rescue story, nobody gets hurt, so there's no drama. He just didn't summit a mountain that he'd trained for, that he'd committed to, that he was financially in it because of a 90-second phone call that could have been different, right? Had he put some prep on his home front 12 months before he ever got on that plane? And there is a happy ending to this story, right? Like he went home on that round and he invested in his relationship and he, you know, sewed up the distance in his marriage. He took the time to understand and relieve that resentment that had built up. And he came back and he summited the following season. And then they went off to Patagonia as a married couple and they celebrated the new year, right? Today is not about convincing your family that the mountain is safe. It's about becoming somebody that your family can really actually talk to about their feelings and their fear that they have around your goals, because that is the thing that is going to turn them from an obstacle into being your best asset. And your family are everything. You don't have to go far to find the sports psychology research and the studies that have been done on athletes, like elite athletes, right? We've just gone through the World Cup and the Olympics, and like, the first people that people turn to, whether they win or lose, to give them a big hug is their families, right? And you guys, as elite climbers, as mountaineers, it's an elite sport. You are on the same level as them. Your family is your biggest asset, right? Your loved ones, whoever they might be. So this isn't kind of like, I don't know, 30 minutes of admin on the way, in the car on the way to the plane. It's stuff that you really need to lean into. So I want us to spend a few minutes now, and I just want you to think about the key people in your life, right? Your parents, your spouse, your kids, your business partner, your employees, right? It doesn't have to be like just your loved ones. It can be your greater network. Who is it that has the hardest time with this goal or this ambition of yours? Who do you find yourself sort of walking on the eggshells a bit around this? You kind of sugarcoat it a fair amount. Who do you downplay what the risk of mountaineering is to? Or who keeps bringing up the doom or gloom or keeps tagging you and stuff on social media and sending you like clickbait media headlines to like try to convince you that this is not the right thing to do or this is not the right time in your life, right? Who has said to you like, "Oh, this is not a very responsible use of funds and maybe one day when we've made more money, when we have more time, when the kids are older, whoever else, whoever you can think of that is the biggest person that throws roadblocks up." Okay. Now jump in their shoes for me for a quick minute. I want you to imagine their life for a second. Do not see your goal get out of your own perspective entirely. Just see their reality exclusively through their eyes. Are they like me? Now they're solo parenting, running the business solo for the next 2 months, working full time, stressing away every day about your safety on a totally different time zone? Are they the recipient of your entire workload? Is their already full inbox now delegated and now they're super stressed? Are they someone that's in your life that is so not into adventure that they cannot understand why you would ever want to sleep in a tent? And now they just have to listen to you talk nonstop about like mountaineering, something that they have absolutely zero interest in. Are they your parents? Like Obama? Obama put this the best. He said, being a parent is like wearing your heart on the outside of your body. Is this the precious kid who has got so far in life, achieved so much, and is now risking it all for some, I don't know, place or some point on the world, on some frosty peak somewhere, and their brain is just going, danger, 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 my precious baby. From that perspective, can I finish this statement? My loved one is climbing this mountain because. Can they finish that? My loved one is climbing this mountain because. Today, we are going to help you have an answer to that and be able to give them what they need to get behind you. That's our intention. And this really matters. Filling in that gap really matters because there are two things that are going to happen on the mountain if they can't. Number one, either you, as the climber, there's two failure modes. You will lose focus, will, determination, hope, resilience, whatever it is, because somewhere deep inside you, you have that itchy subconscious feeling of, I shouldn't be here. And that is going to erode resolve and become a distraction. And distraction is dangerous on summit day, right? Or pressure is going to come in from home or from work, and the climber is going to respond with guilt, the need to alleviate that pressure, to reset the priorities, to show their loved ones that that's where their priority lies. And they're going to overcorrect from that feeling, try and prove loyalty at home and bail, right? So what starts as a really small gap turns into a total chasm. And once you're on the mountain, it's nearly impossible to practically bridge that gap because the stress, the realities, the duration, it hits all at once and everyone's on the different page and different time zone and communications aren't always easy and everyone is exhausted and stressed. So can you see how these conversations aren't really like, oh, they're nice to have? They're pretty much a necessity. And I really want you to think of this as part of your safety net, of part of your real preparation. It's not that 30 minutes of emotional admin on the ride to the airport. You need to give the attention to this that it deserves. And I know you will. That's why you're here. That's why you've already shown up. You've already won half the battle. Okay, the next thing I want to do before we get into the meat and potatoes of the conversation is really give you something in your toolkit that is a framework for all of the discussions that are going to happen at home. And that is being able to assess and identify the question type or topic type that your family is really asking behind their words. And it's not quite as simple as you might think. Some of what your family is going to throw you is fact-based, or your loved ones. When I say family, I also mean like your loved ones, your bigger network, those people that you just imagined, right? Some of that is going to be fact-based. It wants a black and white answer. What happens in an emergency, right? Those are the head questions on the right-hand side of the screen. Like, how much does it cost? And those questions have real, honest answers that you can look up, that they can look up. And as we move through these questions and this conversation, I want you to think of these questions as questions of the head, right? And then there's another type. On the other side of the coin are heart questions. And these are usually 80%, maybe more of the conversation. Your job is to know the difference. Why do you even need to do this? Why do you need to do this goal? Right? It sounds like that sounds like it wants an answer, but it doesn't. Actually, it just wants to be heard. That is a values question or a heart question. And the mistake that we all run into, and the mistake we've all made, is that if you answer a values or a heart question with a fact-based answer, you will lose that conversation every single time, even if you are right, right? Even if you're right. There's a great legal communicator, has a great book out. His name is Jefferson Fisher. You can grab him on podcast. And he says, sure, you can win the argument, but you will lose the relationship. And that is not our goal, right? That is definitely not our goal today because those relationships are so important. They're so powerful in your success. The key is knowing if these questions and these conversations are ones of the head, ones of the heart, which order they should be approached in. And spoiler alert, in general, We need to lean into the heart ones first and be honest about the head ones. No sugarcoating, okay? So there's a spoiler. But at the end of this, I hope that you come away with the ability to identify where the conversation is heading. Does it need a heart response or does it need a head response? And there is no better way to demonstrate than this in one of my favorite, and you may have even seen it, is a video that went really viral called "It's Not About the Nail." Have any of you guys seen this? All right, let's take a little look because it says more about head and heart than I ever could.
It's just, there's all this pressure, you know? And sometimes it feels like it's right up on me and I can just feel it, like literally feel it in my head, and it's relentless. And I don't know if it's going to stop. I mean, that's the thing that scares me the most, is that I don't know if it's ever going to stop.
Yeah. Well, you do have a nail in your head.
It is not about the nail.
Are you sure? Because, I mean, I'll bet if we got that out of there...
Stop trying to fix it.
No, I'm not trying to fix it. I'm just pointing out that maybe the nail is causing...
You always do this. You always try to fix things when what I really need is for you to just listen.
Yeah, see, I don't think that is what you need. I think what you need is to get the nail
See, you're
out.
not even listening now.
Okay, fine. I will listen. Fine.
It's just, sometimes it's like there's this achy, I don't know what it is. And I'm not sleeping very well at all. And all my sweaters are snagged. I mean, all of them.
Yeah, that sounds really hard.
It is. Thank you. Ow!
Come on. If you would just...
Don't.
Have any of you guys seen that? I know it's a great commentary on men are from Mars, women are from Venus, by the way. I have used this example very many, many times. Okay, the challenge is he is trying to fix the problem. He wants to solve the emotion. And it's undoubtedly totally logical for him to do that, right? Like, there's a nail. Whereas she just needs him to listen, to get it, to empathize, to feel it, to be in it with her. Sometimes a logical solution is not what we need in that moment. It will come, right? It will come. But usually, the people that we love the most and the people who love us the most, they need a loving response that you care and that you hear them before you try to solve the problem. So to reiterate, when you first tell your people, expect them to push back. And your instinct is going to be to arm yourself with the facts, to try to fix this fear or this feeling for them by talking. Look, it's actually not that dangerous. Look at the fatality rates, the safety record. Look at the guide company, their credentials, who I'm claiming with, to talk. And we need to resist that first urge to justify what we're doing with facts. As your preschool teacher said, and as I always need a reminder myself, is that you have 2 ears and just 1 mouth. Use them accordingly. We always want to listen first before we counter, and here is why. When you are scared or emotional, when they are scared or emotional, they are acting from their emotional brain. Their logical brain is literally locked in that moment. So no matter the quality of the information that you give them, the amazing statistics that you have to counter their fears, you will not satisfactorily answer a heart question with head facts. It is just going to bounce off. It's likely going to sound like you're dismissing their fear rather than answering it. So I want you to keep those frameworks at the top of your mind in these questions before you're climbing and during your climb. And we've actually split up today to go through kind of the before, during, as a framework to how to have these conversations, the type of conversations you're going to be having with your loved ones. And the before actually has 2 sections, right? And this is probably where, during the before is where 95% of the work and the emotional work is going to be done. There are 2 phases in the before that you should be aware of and how your loved ones are likely to react. The first one is the announcement, right? When you first say to your people, I have this goal and I'm going to do this thing. It's short, it's sweet, and then it's done. You know what? You might even get quick buy-in at that point. And then there's the second before your climb phase, which is the long, slow grind of training and planning and financing that follows for months, sometimes years, right? This is where, like, your loved ones, they're going to start seeing the money literally come out of their account. They're going to start seeing the Amazon packages arriving on the doorstep. And you know what? Yeah, that sounded great when it was like a, nebulous thing. But now that it's happening, you might get big buyout and you might get big road blocking when that long, slow grind begins. Every weekend you're off training, often alone. They're going to see a flash of a headline. I want you to expect that. I want you to expect resistance, and I want you to treat the phases really differently. Anticipate the long grind pushback. Be ready to support through the conflict and hopefully get resolution during this time. Try not to shy away from it. It's like short-term validation, long-term, like you want basically to not kick the can down the road, because the more you show up for these open-hearted, the less you have to walk on eggshells, the better that you're going to be, the more they're going to be in your support camp when you get to the mountain itself. Okay, so let's look at the before. And remember when I asked you guys that question at the beginning, like, my loved one is climbing this mountain because the answer, the filling in that gap, is hanging in your why. Why are you climbing this thing? And you guessed it, right? It's a heart question, it's a heart response. Them being able to articulate your why and knowing why you are actually doing this thing is the single biggest key that you have to unlock their support. So before you announce the goal, and even if you already have, that's okay. You can still backtrack this conversation, no trouble. I really want you to spend the time and do the homework on yourself first. You need to be able to clearly answer that question too. Because here's the difference. Hear this, right? Here's the trap. I want to climb Everest because I always have since I was a kid. I just really need this for me. That sounds pretty reasonable to you, right? Like, cool. Now, switch gear again. Go back into that mind frame of being entirely in their shoes, be totally objective, hear it again fresh as a family member or as a loved one or as a teammate, an employee. I want to climb Everest because I always have. Sounds like pretty tenuous to your spouse when you're about to liquidate like 5 to 6 figures to do this thing that they don't necessarily share, that, they wouldn't want to do themselves. They don't even understand. From that perspective, your loved one is actually going to hear like, I just need to do this for me, as a pretty like declaration of a pretty risky, selfish pursuit. And it's actually not a why. I want to climb Everest because I always have. That's a fact about you. It gives your people nothing to hold on to, nothing to like chew on, to consider the benefits of, to get their head around, to like to actually understand you, to actually understand why this huge investment. Hear the difference. What if you said something like this instead? I've been really reflecting on my life about what makes me a healthier, happier person, physically and mentally, and I want to spend the next year training for something that is going to make me a more disciplined, more capable, more confident person. And I need a really big goal to hold on to, right? Something that I've always wanted to do to motivate me, to be able to, commit to this process. And I really want you to see that better person. That's something a family member can like grip onto, right? Research actually shows that when people are taking on big things like big mountain goals, a lot of people will just categorize them as an adventure junkie. Have you been categorized as an adventure junkie, right? Like you're just chasing a thrill. When actually the research shows this, you are actually very, very driven people who want to enrich your lives. You're chasing mastery, you're chasing discipline, you're chasing self-development, you're showing yourself and others what you're truly capable of. Now, that is a why that a family member can really, really respect, even if they don't share it. So the rule is that you need to do your homework. You need to understand your why. Name the internal thing that you are chasing, not the external peak. I'm going to say that again. Try to name the internal thing that you are chasing by doing this, not the external peak that you are going to be doing. Can you see the distinction and the difference? Is that helpful? And I guess like Steph, we also have a mindset webinar that spent a lot of the time with Alan Arnett and Dr. Kirsty Cooper, Dr. Coop, talking a lot about this. So that is like having like this very important why. Do your homework, know your why, and then pick your moment, right? Pick your moment. A common trap is that we kind of do all this homework and we're so exciting and we're ready and we're caught up in our own excitement and we don't read the room. We come in guns blazing and we lob it over the dinner table when, the kids have just dropped the tomato sauce and your partner's had a really stressful day. We've come in from the gym and we're like, yeah, I'm going to go climb Everest. You also need to pick your moment. This is like every big conversation that you've ever had. It's best to set it up versus just lob it at our people randomly. Set aside a quick time for a meeting, ask to go for a walk or a date night and start the conversation in the car, like doing a walk together or being in the car. There's a lot of research that says like side by side for people is a lot easier than face to face. Face to face can be really confrontational. So like try to set time aside for this and set it up so that you can do it right. And know your why. Start from that. Know it inside and out. And also just make sure it's really genuine. Yeah. Like do the time. Figure out why you want to do this thing. And then know it really well, be really genuine, and then be ready to have that conversation, right? Okay. Here's the sequence for the initial conversation. Number one, we are going to actively listen to their response, very actively, right? We are going to nail in the head. We're going to read their feelings, their body language. We're going to use our 2 ears and quiet our mouth. We're going to watch all of the reaction and we're going to be in a total state of curiosity. And you need to be really engaged in that first moment because the information that you're going to be getting and banking, remember it, right? Remember what's behind their fears, remember their reasonings, remember their objections, remember their feelings. It's going to be super helpful in time. Be really active, active listening. We've all learned that skill. It's one of the best skills in life. I'm still learning it, but active listening. Number two, do not interrupt and do not counter. There will be a time for it. It's just not now. Just let them finish. Let them do the nail in the head. Let them get all their feelings and thoughts out. Let them verbally process it. Do not jump in with, well, actually, the death rate is the. Just sit in the discomfort. I know it's hard. Often the process of just being heard is going to get you 99% of the way there. And silence here can also be your friend. Silence is something that human beings don't do very well with, so it can be a tool for you to get more information, to be able to help understand their perspective if you just don't fill it, because they will fill it with gold. So just sit, listen, nail in the head. Okay. Once they have spoken, validate. Really get into their perspective and see it from their side. You need to believe them. Whatever they say, believe them. That's their truth. And you say something like, I get it. I can see it. I can see that you're really worried for me, and that is fair, right? And then get curious, ask questions. Don't assume that you know why they are scared. Ask the golden question. Can you tell me more about what scares you the most out of this? I want to understand. And then when they tell you more, step 5 is you want to clarify. You want to repeat their feelings and their concerns back to them to make sure you understand and you've got their truth. Clarify, right? These are heavy conversations. It's a lot of feelings going backward and forward. So big feelings. Remember, after that nail in the head moment, read the room. Do they need a break? Do you need a break? I also want to take a minute to zoom in here because, again, these are really big feelings. And there's something really important that goes wrong in this step, which is being able to separate, validating the fear from agreeing that the fear should stop or change the plan or kill the goal. I'm going to say that again. It's really important. Being able to separate, validating their fear, their feelings, from agreeing that those feelings and that fear should stop or kill the plan. Most climbers think that they just have two options, or they play out these two options when they see that their loved one is scared or they're countering them or an argument is happening. Right? Number one, they cave, they postpone the trip, they cancel the trip, they get secretive about it, they back down from doing what they really want to do in this life. Or they fight and they start trying to convince their loved ones and they tell them, you know what, you're overreacting. You know what, it's actually fine. It's more dangerous me driving on the road. But neither of those approaches really work. Have they ever worked for you? Right? There is a third option. You're going to validate the fear completely and the feelings. Having a nail in the head is hard. And you are also going to hold the plan completely, both at once. Neither softening the other. Here's what it sounds like. I hear, I know, I get it. I know that this scares you, and that is completely understandable and fair. I'm committed to doing this thing, but I don't want your feelings or your fear to be something that we don't talk about. I want to figure out how we can carry it together. Notice the structure of that. I hear you. I know that this scares you, and that's fair. That's the validation, first half validation. There's no hedging. There's no but in that sentence, in that moment. And then the second part is my decision still stands. Stated plainly, not apologetically confident, I'm still committed to doing this thing. And then this is the most important part, the third part, the final part. It's an invitation back in, right? I don't want this thing to be something we don't talk about. I want us to figure it out together. And here's why the last part, that third part, that invitation back in matters so much. If you skip the validation and you go straight to holding your ground, I'm doing this thing, it's going to sound dismissive. Your fear doesn't matter. I'm doing it anyway. And what plays out? The story at the beginning, right? Just messes with your head on game day. Okay, so that first one. And then the other part of it is that, and I want to get my thoughts right because this is a really important part of that invitation back in and not softening the decision. Because on the flip side is that if you validate them, yeah, that fear is real. And then you say something like, yeah, I'll think about it. Yeah, okay, I get it. I'll think about it. Or, yeah, you know what? Yeah, no, I guess it might not be the right timing. Or whatever you say to alleviate their tension because you want to make it better for them because you care of them. It also means that you've backed yourself into a corner, a tricky corner, because unfortunately, human nature being what it is, right, is that you've just taught them that there is a lever or a lever there that can move your plans. And the next time, they're just going to push it harder. They realize that their fear or their feelings can move your plans. And so, there's the two things there that you have to balance out. And neither of those outcomes, you being dismissive and pushing through ahead anyway without them, or you softening your decision and giving up on what would truly make you happy in this life, neither of those outcomes serve either of you, right? We need all three of the steps. I hear you. I'm committed to doing it. I want to figure out how to carry that fear. Let's do this. Let's come up with a plan together. And this is not going to be a one-liner, by the way. This is going to be something that you will see various versions of, and you'll need to do more than once over and over again over the long course of that training. Remember that it's a long grind. This is a marathon. And again, before you leave, try not to get frustrated. I know it is frustrating, but try not to get frustrated. Rather, expect it, be ready for it, and know that it's not a sign that it's not working. It's just that this is what it looks like when someone is scared or has big feelings about something real and they really love you. The degree to which they have feelings is likely the degree to how much they love you, right? So try to see it as love versus an objection and meet it with the same love. It is a heart versus a head. Meet it with the heart. I hear you. This is hard. I'm committed to it. Let's do it together. Remember, the goal is not to make their fear or their feelings disappear. It is not to resolve the nail in the head. If you are waiting for them to stop having feelings or being scared or being worried or being frustrated about the time away, before you feel like you have the support, you're going to be waiting a really long time, probably forever, right? And you're probably going to miss the support that is actually available to you right now underneath their fear, that if we flip it, give them something tangible to hold on to, work through it together, be there for each other, that is available to you now, okay? Okay, we spent a ton of time on the heart. We need to spend a little bit of time on the head before we move on and before your expedition phase. So I need you to read the room. And once that emotional temperature has come right down, sometimes it's in the same conversation, but actually more often not, depending on their feelings, depending on their reasonings, that, their objections, more often than not, it's actually going to be a secondary conversation a few days later. And that's okay. Try to be patient. It's actually easier for them to just process being heard and then come back with some head and heart data so that we can get that balance, that equilibrium. Once the emotional temperature has come down, that is when you can start bringing in the head thing. You need to be really careful. I know that you've been desperate to just dump all the facts, right? Because they're right here. You're just like, there's the nail. We could just pull that thing out and this would all go away, right? The hard rule to work by is this an emotionally charged moment? Is it a good time to talk now? Or have they just brought it up in the middle of an argument? Have you just had a domestic about something else? And all of a sudden they're like, and you're so selfish for going off and climbing this mountain, spending all this money. And you've all of a sudden got really defensive and you're like, well, it's something I've always wanted to do and I have all the, it's not even that dangerous. Can you see? You're just starting to throw grenades at each other, left, right, and center. And it's not cool. It's not going to get you where you want to go. You need to choose cool, calm moments, right? And even in these head-led conversations, just know that the heart is likely to come back up and you'll still need to go back around, address the heart, do it from their perspective. Remember what you've learned about their reasonings. Remember that active listening. I know what they're talking about. I've clarified why they feel this way and I can talk to that. Yeah, I hear that. I hear it. It's so hard having 2 months away from each other. And that is so important because you are going to reinforce that validation for them that you've heard them, that you've felt them, right? So lead with empathy and then fact. All right, so let's go through a couple of these common questions that families ask. And these are also the ones that are most, we checked, we double checked, we cross checked ourselves, that these are also the most common things that people ask the internet or AI, right? Again, we're going to identify head versus heart, or is it a bit of both? And then we can role play some answers. So the biggest one is usually around safety and risk. How dangerous is this thing? Remember, that's a hallmark of their love for you. It's a testament to how much they care if they're worried for you. Once we've heard and validated and we've clarified their actual fear is, then we can respond with honest data. Usually people aren't actually anxious in the abstract at all. They usually actually search very specific numbers. The most searched terms when people ask the internet cluster around fatality rates, right? They're worried about you. They're worried that they're scared. And actually, the data is not something to be afraid of. It's actually data that's really a story really worth using. It's helpful because the overall mountaineering and hiking fatality rates are actually low and lower compared to what people think and what the clickbait would like you to have believe. Everest specifically is often used as the big one, and that has become dramatically safer. The death rate has fallen from it was around 5% in the 1990s, and in the last 10 years, 2015 to 2025 period, it is now at 0.69%, less than a 1% chance. 2025 was the safest year on Everest in modern history. We had 3 deaths against well over 1,000 climbers. 2026, the one that's just passed, was 5 with well over 1,000 climbers. And that's 1,000 climbers, including clients and staff like Sherpa and guides, etc. So the problem is that often loved ones or people in our circle, our inner circles, clump high altitude mountaineering or climbing as just one giant scary blob in their minds. So you might just be like tackling Kilimanjaro as a start, or any mountain, Carstens, and Kilimanjaro. Let's use Kilimanjaro as an example because it's got low technical risk and it's actually mostly about fitness. Or like versus Aconcagua and Vinson, now we're starting to it's getting a bit colder there. We're getting higher altitude. That's a more moderate risk. Denali, Everest, 8,000 meters. Yep, that's getting even more, right? Families scared and seeking data will type in very specific questions to get specific information, and often the motivation for that, sometimes it's to ease their fears, but often it can be to get a database of compelling information to try to get you to stop, right? So, and they'll type in, well, how dangerous is Everest? And they'll arm themselves with reinforcing information or horror stories, and they'll send them to you to convince you, but really, you're just tackling Kilimanjaro in this moment. And sure, Everest might be the goal one day, and you might want the 7 summits, so that might be a progression point. But right now, we're just talking about Kilimanjaro. Separating the mountains and bringing them back to what we are facing today with this goal immediately in front of us can be extremely helpful. And it can calm fear more than a general reassurance of well, it's actually more dangerous if I cross the road in New York City, right? You want to say something like, I really want to be very specific with you because climbing can cover everything from hiking to something generally more serious. Kilimanjaro's risk profile is closer to something like strenuous trekking versus Denali and Everest, where, yeah, that's one I want us to have an actual real conversation with about risk management, emergency procedures, etc. And I will when we get there. But Kilimanjaro is almost 100% summit success rate. The fatality rate is next to nothing. Let's have a look. And here's one of the other things that I think is very useful. Honestly, arm yourself with the actual facts that are current because the facts that you find on AI are the facts that they will find on AI. You don't want any inconsistency. But actually, sometimes it's really hard to hear it from our loved ones themselves, right? We learn better when we seek information ourselves. And so give them great objective places to go. You know what? Do you want to have a look at that together? Let's check out the Himalayan database, which has every record of, the Himalayas, the most comprehensive database that we could find. Let's go and have a look at that together, right? Sometimes doing it together or giving them the place to source that information objectively is going to be very helpful. Okay, so safety and risk. You kind of get that, right? We're heart and then a little bit of head. We're going to do it together and be objective to the mountain that we're on rather than this big nebulous climbing thing. The next one that comes up a lot is cost. People will ask, about cost. And again, this is kind of a head question and a heart question, and it's kind of both, and you might need to answer accordingly. You need to know your person and figure out what they're actually asking you, because families searching this usually aren't questioning whether you can afford it, right? They're trying to understand if this is a rational grown-up decision, a financial decision versus just an impulsive, I'm having a middle-age crisis, I bought a Ferrari type scenario. People do actually search the actual dollar figures on the internet and on AI now. So I don't want you, when you're coming into this, obviously, is it a heart question? Are they asking me, do I have a plan? Is this rationally thought out? Or is this a head question? They actually want a dollar figure. And if they want a dollar figure, do not be vague. Do not sugarcoat it, because vague sounds like you have not thought this through. Real numbers stated plainly, factually, confidently, truthfully. I know it might be a hard conversation to have because it's like, oh my gosh, this is a lot. It is a lot. Mountaineering is an expensive pursuit. But when you're open about it, it actually sounds more responsible, not less. And I want you to make sure you have the all-in numbers, not just conveniently like, oh yeah, well I've got actually it's just here are the program fees to the expedition company, and you don't include travel costs, insurance, tips, gears. Trust me, you do not want this topic on cost to be a moving goalpost. Later on, trying to remanage expectations when the credit card bill comes in. You need to give them all in gear, guide, flights. You want to say something like, yep, all in, this runs somewhere around XYZ, your real number. Here's how I'm budgeting for it, and here's what I'm not compromising on. It's usually for safety, right? When we start to understand the economics of mountaineering, usually the cost is about resources, the quality of guidance, redundancies, and that actually usually helps get your loved ones on board, because your loved ones understand that in no world is a $10,000 shortcut worth your life. And if they need more understanding of why is mountaineering so bloody expensive? Why are you spending so much money to do this dangerous thing? That is a great time. You can redirect them to the expedition company. There's lots of articles. You can ask AI so that they can understand that that cost actually usually comes from safety margins, right? And personnel and the quality of guidance. And if your loved one never asks, feel free for you to bring it up and explain it yourself. It's actually a great opportunity to have some of these big questions, because sometimes it goes into that silence mode where they don't want to bring it up and you don't want to bring it up. And then in silence, resentment builds roots. So another big one that we hear a lot is like the motivation, right? Why do you even want to do this? Yeah, has anyone had that question come up for them? Why do you even care about this? What are you even trying to do? Okay, so let's have a little look at that. Is that a heart question or a head question? Captain Obvious. You've definitely already answered this. This is when you answer with your genuine why. If you fudged your why, you never did your homework, you're going to be floundering. If your answer changes, you're running into dangerous territory. That consistency matters. Look forward to this question. I want you to not run from this question. I want you to look forward to this question. This is a great opportunity to share your why and start to reframe your goal as less about thrill seeking and being an adrenaline junkie, and more about what we talked about earlier: symbolic meaning, the power of your preparation, long-term identity, personal development, transformation. You're deriving life satisfaction from a disciplined prep, right? This is learned mastery over risk. It's not being reckless. Like that reframe is going to help your family go, oh, all right, they're thinking of this like a pilot would, or like a surgeon would. That's how they're addressing this risk, rather than like how a thrill seeker would, seeking an adrenaline rush. So if you take away one thing from this webinar, I'm going to keep saying it, not because you guys are silly people. You're not. To get to where you are, to do mountaineering, you're not. But your why is your weapon. Your why is your weapon. It is the single most important way to help your loved ones get something they can get their claws into, to get them on board. And I'm not talking about it in a manipulative way, right? We're not trying to manipulate people. We just want them to understand us, which is why you need to do your homework on why you're doing this thing too, and be really genuine here. Okay, you're crazy. You're just crazy. This is crazy. When you hear "you're crazy" lobbed at you, most climbers will respond with, I'm not crazy. I've trained for this. You don't even understand. You know what? You don't even know about mountaineering. You don't even know. Have you climbed a mountain? Or they go into like an over explaining of the like, here are all the safety and logistics. And they again answer a hard question. You are crazy. is a heart, not a head, with head. And they over-explain the safety logistics in a way that completely misses the emotional point. And none of them work, right? Because you guys are all arguing about the wrong thing. You're crazy, heart issue. It cannot be diffused with head statistics. Doesn't matter how good those statistics is. When you hear you are crazy from anyone, from the stranger in the street, that is just usually fear dressed up as judgment. Your loved one isn't going to be making a rational argument right there. They're just expressing their terror. And that's the language that's available to them at the time. What? You're crazy. What you say is, I know it feels that way. I know it feels like I'm completely mad. I understand. I actually understand why you think that. Again, here you're not agreeing with them. You're not defending. You're just acknowledging that their fear is rational from their perspective. We're getting back in their shoes. Right, so I hope some of those, like here we've done the safety, we've done the finance, why do you want to do this, a bit about the motivation, and just the like, you're crazy, and how to come at them, how to respond. Okay, here are the do's and don'ts in these before conversations, these big, heavy heart questions, these big feelings. Do. Nail in the head. Listen before problem solving. You're going to empathize. Yep, I get it. You're going to validate. You are going to ask questions. Why? Tell me a little bit more about that. Why do you feel that way? Right? You're going to be curious and then you're going to clarify. Did I get that right? So that feels like this for you? Get to their truth. Remember that truth, right? And then you want to provide, after you've got the emotions off, all out, all on the table, then you want to provide honest data, objective resources, information that's probably going to help them take the nail out of the head themselves. You doing it for them is not the solution they need. They need to get to the conclusion where they can take it out themselves, right? And not before they're ready. There are 3 things that are really going to set you back every single time. 1, being defensive. The moment you get defensive, the conversation stops being productive, stops being about this mountaineering, and it starts being an argument. Every time you feel yourself get defensive, try to stop and put curiosity on. Go back to those questions. Why are you feeling like that? I get that. Info dumping. You've got all these statistics, you've done all the research, you've done all the risk mitigation, you've read all the articles, you've interviewed the guide service. You know, right? The head data, and you're going to start lobbing that out on them before they're ready. Statistics and head information do not reassure a scared person. They are in their emotional brain. It is just going to overwhelm them. And then finally, dismissiveness. Look, you're overreacting. It'll be fine. That just shuts the door and it shuts them down on being able to be honest with you in the future. If they learn that voicing their fear or voicing their feelings just gets waved away by you, they will stop voicing it and they will either start resenting you quietly and privately, or they're going to start panicking alone later. And if you love these people as much as they love you, that's not what you want for them, right? It's worse for both of you. Also, try not to get caught in a debate trap. Diffuse it. Keep going back to heart. I can hear this is super hard. I get it. Tell me more about that. We're going to tackle this together, right? You now know the script. And you know what? Sometimes you are just going to go around and around in circles. And if at that point you've tried all these tools and it's just not working and you're not seeing eye to eye, that is okay. These are going to be some of the toughest conversations of your life with the people. The bigger the feelings, the more they love you. The bigger the objections, the more they're worried for you. Remember, sure, you can use all these tools and techniques to win the argument, but if you lose the relationship, no mountain in the world is worth that. Your relationships come first. So when you need it, get a facilitated conversation. And you know what? You may be anti-therapy, and that's okay. Just try on this accord, if you really get stuck in that circle where you're not getting anywhere, to do a facilitated conversation. Maybe it's with a friend or a counselor or a life coach or a therapist. It could be the most helpful thing you could do, because it's not about someone making you right and them wrong, or them right and you wrong. A therapist or a good facilitator will never try to win an argument from one side. Rather, they will help interpret it, provide context, and bring you guys onto the same page. And most of the time, right, we can't do that for our loved ones. We're all too close to it. We're all right here, giving an argy-bargy. And sometimes we just need that objective perspective. It can be worth its weight in gold. It will be the best investment you make in your climb. And speaking of the right people, we have an amazing resource in the sports psychologist, the US Olympic team, who's also been an elite athlete herself, Dr. Coop. We did a webinar with her, and you can go and have a chat with her, or anyone, honestly, anyone. A life coach, a objective friend who can hear both sides of the story and facilitate a calm, cool conversation, right? If you do get stuck in that loop, it doesn't mean that's the end. Okay, you can continue to work through it together. Okay, so when your loved ones understand your why, they are very likely to buy into it. I promise. Try it on for size, because that will 99% of the time, it's going to get you there. They're going to be like, yes, I want you to be a more self-developed person. Yes, I want you to be this disciplined, happy, healthy human. I love that. I can get behind that. And then you've given them some head data in a calm, cool moment that's actually helped. Like head data is never going to extinguish the fear, but it will give it a container for them to put it into, right? And so long as you've done it in the right order, then 95% of the time, your loved ones are going to be like, yes. If they get there, so your loved one turns around and goes, that's cool. Actually, hell yeah. All right. I want you to stop and notice and appreciate it. They have come a long way. They have had to tackle all their objections, all their fears for you, all their worry, all their love, overtaking them like a tidal wave. They've had to go through that feeling of like, you know what, she is so damn selfish. There's this I want to tell a great another story of my brother was 19 at the time when he decided to tell my parents over the dinner table he wanted to be the youngest Australian to climb Everest. And then he did it and it was all a lovely, happy story. And someone made a documentary afterwards, after about his climb. And they interviewed my mum. And they asked my mum, like, what did you think when he first said this over the dinner table? And she said, I was furious. I remember feeling like he's crazy. This is my precious baby. How dare he? He is so selfish to go out and put himself at risk of death. And then she held that. And my mum's an amazing person. I looked up to her so much. And somehow she came through it. And she came to the realization that she was equally, and she told this documentary filmmaker, I realized that I was equally selfish to put my fears for his well-being over his dream of doing something in his life that would be meaningful for him. So I realized we were both equally selfish. He was selfish pursuing this thing, A-type personality, relentlessly. And I was selfish to try to stop him. That was pretty amazing, right? Like, I think that's pretty amazing. So if your family come through, or your loved ones, or your business partner come through some amazing transformation where they can go from this place to this place, notice and appreciate it. Be thankful for it. And then I want you to go one step further. I want you to go one step further, and I want you to invite them in. Invite them along for the actual journey, because shared goals are really powerful, right? Even you want to say something like, you know what? I don't want you to be that person waiting at home for 2 months. Would you like to trek in to Everest Base Camp with me, or come out for part of this? Give them a role. Don't sideline them. And this matters for a really, really practical reason, right? Like, if someone can picture exactly where you are and what you're doing, who you're doing it with, it takes the mystery out of it. Mystery is what fuels the anxiety. It's not actually the distance or the duration that you're away from home. It's the not knowing that fuels their anxiety. If they've come along and they kind of met the Sherpa team, and they've met your guides, or they've come out to Nepal and they've kind of seen it, or they've come out to Africa and you've packed together and you've booked the flights together and you've been on the plane together, and they're going on safari while you're climbing Kilimanjaro, but they've met the people. It takes the mystery out of it, and it allows you to share that journey together. Like, most of our expeditions will have like a non-climber option. So you can do it all together, except for like they don't actually have to do this thing that they're not interested in. And there are so many multi-generational things that you can bring your parents on. Like, and they can have a luxury option that's way more accessible or more for mobility. They don't have to be climbers themselves. And you know what? Even if you invite them, they still might say no, thank you. Like, no way. And that's not where I want to spend my time or my money, or I can't. I need to take care of the kids at home. Still, like, if you've done any kind of psych stuff on relationships, you'll have come across the Gottman Institute. And if you haven't heard of them, highly recommend the Gottman Institute are awesome. And they talk about the single one glue of relationships are little bids of connection. Find little bids for connection. Find a way they can get involved in. You know what? Maybe it's not that they come with you to Everest Base Camp. Maybe it's that you do a long weekend and you go to wine country and you do a bit of a day hike, but together, and they can come on that hike, but then you can go and sip wine at somewhere that they would really like. And you can do these little bits of connection, right? Because what you don't want it to do is to be this thing where your training and your climbing and the topic of conversation collapse your relationship into one topic for 2 years where they're left on the sidelines. Be aware of how much climbing and your excitement and your planning and your prep take over your life. And those conversations are really easy to have a slippery slope on that. And it might just not be their thing. And if it's not their thing, that's okay. Then you need to make intentional time for each other that is not related to climbing or training. Set a weekly date night, even if it's every 2 weeks. Set a phone call, time and place that you Zoom in with your parents and your family. Check in with your adult kids. Make more time at work in the lead up so that you can delegate efficiently with your business partners or your employees, right? So then when the time comes, you've set aside intentional time for each other so that no one gets overwhelmed and no one suffers under the sacrifice that your loved ones will make for your climb. Because there is a degree of sacrifice that they need to make that needs to be acknowledged as well. Okay, I would also love to now turn our attention to during your climb. And these are just some practicalities. We can move through it fairly quickly, right? And if you ever on board with us on one of our expeditions, we will also go through this with you, and we have some resources that are available as well. But this is just one of the things that, and we put it in during, but it is something that you'd probably, you'd actually chat about during, your training and stuff. You'd have had the conversation beforehand. But it is the part that almost nobody does. And it's one of the highest leverage tools you have, and that is to manage expectation. As I said, most of the anxiety that families and loved ones and people will feel around while you're gone comes from the mystery. It isn't actually about the mountain itself or the risk or the objective dangers. It's about not being in the know and sitting with the silence. So then communication and the realities of that and managing expectations and setting expectations can actually, really alleviate that. So you want to set expectations around communication, like how often, through what channel, and what does silence mean? You want to go through, hey, it's going to be every few days and not daily. Set that expectation now, not from base camp. Like, oh, I'm going to be out of touch. There's no cells. Tell them really early in the piece, like, hey, it's probably going to be every few days. You probably won't hear from me daily. That's totally normal. You want to go through like the no news is good news rule. That is so helpful for families and people waiting to know, like, no news is good news. No news is good news, right? It probably means that you're moving, you're eating, you're sleeping. It doesn't mean there's anything wrong, but it's pretty counterintuitive to someone who loves you. So, like, practice that. Tracking devices, we want to go through that. Nowadays, we have these amazing technologies that can really show, what they show. You can track people down to the, meterage and footage of where they are on the mountain, but they are not foolproof. They fail in the cold. Everyone has had that sat nav or maps on your phone experience where you're actually 100 feet from where you actually are. Well, 100 feet on the ridgeline of Everest looks like you've fallen into Tibet, and it sends panic stations, right? So, like, talk about that and then actually practice it in training. Go for a few day hikes with your inReach. If you're a couple that texts multiple times a day, when you're apart training, try to do a whole day with no texting back and forward, and then maybe make it two days without comms on a camping trip. Right? Experience what it is to not know and then know, oh, no news was good news. Everything was okay. I felt stressed. I was really worried about them. And then actually, it was fine. You want to tell your person that before you go dark for 3 days. You don't want to be trying to explain it when you're in a frozen tent and you know what? You turn on your inReach and the battery zaps and you've got 4% battery. You also want to help explain to them things like summit day realities, when you will hear, what you'll hear. Again, those vary mountain by mountain. Your expedition company will go through them with you if you ask the right questions. Weather delays, turnaround decisions, all of that gives your family something tangible to hold on to in the moment. And then you can remind them of that, how expedition teams will communicate and who they should go to for the real information. It's going to do more to protect your family's peace of mind than trying to reassure them on the mountain itself, because you just won't have the battery, you won't have the bandwidth, you won't have the energy to be trying to reassure someone, and you shouldn't be anyway. At that point, you need to be focused on what you're doing ahead of yourself. The other massive one is the news spiral. I want you to manage their expectations around news and social media. Mountain news, especially social media, is a game of whispers, and it is delicious, juicy clickbait. Even for mainstream, usually reputable companies will use this. Like mainstream media, you'll see it on outside, you'll see it come up with legitimate news sources behind it, and they keep recycling it. Why? Because it's clickable. They earn advertising dollars with those clicks. Tell them not to use the news as a daily check-in. It's really easy being the person at home to go in the doom scroll, right? And you're like, you see something, or your family members send you something, and you're like, oh my God, right? Is there really hundreds of people trapped on Mount Everest right now? Well, actually, no. They were trekkers. They weren't even on the mountain, but that was a headline, and it's a headline that's been recycled again and again. The one in the middle of the screen right now was posted yesterday about a poisoning scandal that happened years ago and re-entered the mainstream conversation again this year. It's not even climbing season right now, but it's like, ooh, the Mount Everest guide's a looming catastrophe. And even if it's like not your people, try to manage your people's people. So like ask them, if Auntie Karen sends this to you, try not to like reshare it. Make sure that you warn them of the news spiral. Make sure you warn them of the social media spiral before it happens, because my gosh, is it horrible when you are the person at home and your husband is on summit day and it is at 8,000 meters and you get sent one of these articles. Trust me, I have been there and I know this stuff and I still get sucked in. And then I still go in the doom scroll of trying to find it out. And then I ask AI. That does not make me a happier, healthier person. Right? My advice is written in a letter to your loved ones. It's on our website. We send it to every climber who signs up with us. Stay busy on summit day. Avoid this stuff like the plague. If something goes wrong, if there is actually an incident that you are involved in, it is our duty of care as an expedition to speak to the family first before it leaks to the press. Okay? Know that we will talk to them if there is any incident. Use us, use the expedition company as a source of truth and tell them that too. Okay. So there's some advice for the loved ones. And actually, like, to be honest, I'm going to skim over this pretty quickly because that is something that we will address with them. This conversation has been for us. This is a conversation for them. But I still want you to be aware of it because it could seed in any conversation that's useful. And I want you to start to have some stuff in your arsenal to be able to script it. And that's things like take the pressure off the summit. And this is actually a safety point, not just an emotional one. And it's one for you and it's one for them. Climbers who have built up the summit as the symbol of success, which we all do, that's a natural thing to do, right? We're trying to go to the top. That's the entire objective of mountaineering. I get it. But like if you've only got that as the single measure of success, those are the mountaineers that are going to get summit fever. They're going to start pushing past their own safety feelings. They're going to start not telling their guide things that the guide should know about what's happening in their body, because turning back feels like failure. If your family is also fixated on, well, did you make it? Did they make it? As soon as you make it, I'm going to put that on a family thread, right? That pressure is going to come right back on you in the form of feeling like you disappointed someone or you disappointed them, not just yourself, but them too if you turn around. And that might make, in the stress and hecticness of summit day, that might make you think, I'm not going to tell my guide that all of a sudden I really, really can't feel my fingers. Yeah? Can you see the loop? Get on the same page about what success is for yourself and for your family and communicate it. It sounds something like this. Hey, for me, the goal is this whole expedition. I'm doing this for the experience. It's not just for the tippity top. That would be nice. But if conditions or something means that I don't summit that, I want you to know that's not a failure for me. That's just me making the right call. That's me being a good mountaineer. That is a hallmark of success if I have to turn. And I don't want to feel like I've disappointed anyone for turning around. So let's agree right now on what success could look like. Because, hey, I might need that reminder one day. I might need you to help me remember that, right? That is a much better conversation to have. You are not going to have much time to manage this from the mountain or necessarily even remember it at the time. So it's good to kind of help them learn this in advance because it is a reinforcing loop. Again, the obsessive tracker checking, massive issue. Don't do it, right? Yeah, use them. They're amazing, but just don't refresh them every minute of the day. And then don't panic if they do something weird like drop dead. Okay, we get every single Everest Summit day, we get emails from climbers' families saying, can you tell me where this person is? Because their tracker is not on. Okay, you might not hear from your person because the guide won't let your person use the sat phone. Why? Because they are reserving battery life for true emergencies. So they black out comms for what feels like to the climber or the family member at home, not a real reason, but it is. They're conserving battery life. Hey, something might happen and you get stuck at high camp for a week and they may still need that battery because they mean to make 10 phone calls instead of one. So think through all of those things. Then the other one is like when you're on the mountain, you'll be exhausted. Tell them about how you're going to treat them at check-in, because most likely you are going to sound cold, hard, and mean. Sorry, I've been on the end of that sat phone call so many times. You are going to sound like you do not care about what's happening at home and you're totally bored out. And that person, that loved one, has been hanging on, just waiting for that phone call all day. They know what's coming, or that in-reach text. It's like being in love again for the very first time. You're hanging out by your folks. Are they going to text me? Oh, they text me. And you're going to sound like, I got there. Yep, bye. And they're going to take it personally. If you've managed that expectation before you go, that's going to be really powerful. Okay, and we've already talked about amplifying unverified news, and it spreads like wildfire, so we don't need to go over that again. Okay, the last thing I want to talk about is what happens after your climb, because this is something that hardly anyone ever talks about, and it's one thing nobody prepares for. A lot of the time, coming home isn't always a triumphant reunion. Often, climbers will have gone through something. That's why we climb. They will have gone through some transformation. They will have seen some stuff. Sometimes they'll be really quiet. Sometimes they're just trying to integrate what happens. Sometimes you're just so exhausted and completely flat. Sometimes you're anticlimaxing because you've held this goal for 5 years and now it's done. And now there's a void and you don't have anything there anymore and you don't know what's next. And then a loved one's like, hey, what's next? What are you doing now? Before you've even unpacked that stinky duffel bag. And it is just too much. It is just too much. So just give them a heads up before you leave. Hey, your family will be expecting an instant celebration at reunion. And when they get that withdrawn version of you who's still just processing all this stuff, that can be really confusing and it can be misconstrued and be really hurtful if no one saw it coming, because they had a surprise reception at the airport with a cake and the kids had made handmade posters and then you went all weird, right? Like you kind of need to be like, hey, when I get back, I'm probably going to be pretty exhausted. I might even be a bit strange for a little while. And I need some time to process that. And I promise you that's not a sign that anything is wrong, but just give me a little room to land. And then maybe we could like plan a full celebration together with our family and friends together a week later. That would be awesome, right? Speaking of celebration, your trip, regardless of outcome, has created sacrifice on behalf of your supporting network. They have sacrificed. They have been the ones at home. They have held down the inbox and the work. They have kept the wheels spinning. The world did not stop while you were out there living the expedition of life of when's my next meal. They have absolutely been holding down the fort and it is exhausting. Please recognize them. Like an Oscar speech where you call out every person that helped you get there. This is your moment to make sure it's not all about you, to make sure that you are in gratitude, that the accolades where everyone's like, wow, you did it, you're amazing, climbed Everest, what's it like? That validation, that self-fulfillment, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, like, I did this thing, I'm an amazing human. You are an amazing human. Do not stop to turn around, look back at the people that helped you make that happen and say, hey, thank you. I see you. That was hard. Thank you. Your family carried this with you. You carried it together. You did this thing together. Because I promise you that moment in the sun for both of you, for all of you, is going to pave the way next time you decide to do something really big, really amazing, really special with your life. Okay? Don't forget to give them the shout out they deserve. Lastly, let's look at scoreboard. How will you know this stuff actually works, all this stuff we've talked about? I want to give you a scorecard. The good scorecard, the bad scorecard. Is this working? Is it not? Is this strategy working? This is the good scorecard. Your loved one takes a genuine interest and starts to ask questions on their own about your goals. They're going to start asking things like, oh, how's training going? And they're going to do that unprompted. It's not like you're going to tell them. They're going to start going, oh, did the shoes work out? They will know your why and they will be able to repeat it back in your own words. You will hear them say it in conversation to other people, on the phone to Auntie Emma. Oh yeah, Simon's doing this thing because he really wants to be a more disciplined person. It brings out the best in him. He's working so hard. They will be able to state your why. And they'll want to be involved somehow. They'll start training with you or going on that hike. They'll start planning. Maybe they'll look at flights for you. They'll maybe come on part of the trip with you. Maybe they'll see something and they'll send it to you all of a sudden. It was a useful thing that came up on their Instagram about how to fit mountaineering boots. It's got nothing to do with their life, but they'll share it with you. You've had at least one real conversation about their fear, their feelings, and this is not just a truce. You've had a real conversation. They will ask you something out of curiosity. Oh, what is the route on Mount Everest? Oh, I looked at some videos on YouTube. That's kind of interesting. Not just out of anxiety, out of curiosity, right? These are good scorecards. Maybe they've met and they've talked with your guide service. Like we do a spousal family support call. You can at any time book a call with me and your family or your loved ones or your business partners, and I will answer all their questions. You don't even have to do it. I will do it. Maybe they've leaned in and done that. And they will celebrate milestones and setbacks with you. They will help you if you twist an ankle. They will celebrate a hard training week rather than just tolerating it. And I put a picture of Dawn and her son. This was one of our Everest climbers this year. This is a great scorecard moment. Her son trekked in to Everest Base Camp at the end of her climb, and after her summit, as she was coming down, he met her at the base of the ice fall. Got videos on YouTube. She says, the summit meant nothing in comparison to that moment with my son because your loved ones are more than the summit. They're more than any of these mountains, okay? So those are marks of good scorecard, bad scorecard, things that make you think, uh-oh, I need to spend more time in the emotional admin phase. You're going to stop fighting, but you have zero conversations about this and you start walking on the eggshells again and you start sugarcoating again. And the topic is off limits at home because you'd rather not have the battle. That is an indication that there is work to be done. They only ask questions looking for reasons that you should cancel, or they start sending you stuff looking for reasons you should cancel. You've started hiding some of the purchases. You go and get the Amazon package real quick before anyone knows it's coming to just avoid the conflict. Any mention of this trip or something comes up or someone asks in front of them and they do, or an eye roll, right? These are indications like, okay, there's more work to be done here. I've got to put more emotional admin time into this. Or you feel like you've got two separate lives. There's a climbing you and a home you, and the two shall never meet, right? It might not affect you in your life now, but it will affect you on the mountain. And it might not even affect this mountain, but it might affect the bigger mountains that you want to pursue after you've achieved this mountain. Or you're more anxious about having these conversations than going to the mountain itself, right? Resentment builds, resentment is bad. You do not want to lose any of your relationships for any mountain ever in the world. I promise you, you can do this together. You can get on board. The difference between the bad column and the good column isn't really did they stop objecting? It's did they stay engaged? The bad scorecard and the good scorecard, it's not did we stop fighting, it's did they stay engaged. Silence and compliance can look like success, but when someone is sacrificing unwillingly, when the payoff is not enough at home, resentment builds, and resentment is one of the worst things for your relationships. Do not let it build. Try to diffuse it, work through it together. I hope this has been inspiring. I hope it's been useful. There are additional resources, our letter to our loved ones. If you haven't read it, please do so. If you have people who are in your life, send it to them. We have a one-pager that will be helpful, a quick cheat sheet just to trigger your memory of this conversation. Again, mentioning we do these family support calls. If you've got, people, if your people need a support call, they need a few moments, they can ask objective questions because it's easier to hear it from a stranger than from you. That is one of the key differences of climbing the seven summits. We are holistic. We are not just buy a trip with us, see you on the day, meet you in Kathmandu, here's the itinerary, here's the gear, let's see ya. That's why we're special. We want to do those things. And then Dr. Kirsten Cooper, Dr. Coop, she's amazing, amazing if you need her. Okay, so we're going to send out all those resources for you. There's that cheat sheet that you're going to get. It's just a one pager and it's literally just to trigger your memory. And then finally, we want to stay connected with you. Steph, you've always got an awesome wrap up for us as to where to find us, how to do it. We are here for you. We do want to hear from you. We hope it's been useful. We hope to get out on those mountains with you. We hope to see your support network right behind you.
Yeah. Thank you, Caroline. No, folks, there's our website. There's our email. Of course, give us a follow up on all of our socials if you'd like to stay up to date with where we are on the mountain and where our teams are headed. And then that link right there is that consult call with Caroline. If you have a trip planned and you just want to talk through planning a family call, use that to chat with her or just ping us on email. That info at Climbing the Seven Summits is the easiest way to get us right there. But I just want to say a quick thank you to Caroline for sharing all of this with us. It really is special to hear the merger of your background in psychology, your background of being an adventurous yourself, but then also being the wife, the mother, the sister of people that are in the big mountains, the friends you have that go out there. That's kind of a trifecta of things that you're bringing to the table here. And I think it's really unique to have this conversation and to really tone in on how to have them with your loved ones, whether it's your mom or your sister or your spouse. So I just want to give Caroline a huge thank you. And then we're here for you. That's really what we want you to know. We want to be your resource and we want to help you have these conversations with your loved ones.
Definitely. Yeah. Thank you. Thanks,
Yeah.
guys. Just remember your weapon is your why.
And take a look at that mindset webinar if you're struggling with your why. That is a gold mine of information of how to set that why and set that goal and intention. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Bye, guys.